Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show, where we talk about all things home and healing. So, Happy New Year! It's been a little while. And look, I got a new background. Isn't that cool? So, while we were gone, my computer had a meltdown. Oh my God. Talk about scary, scary, scary. So, I did have somebody, I had a worker in my house who, I don't know if he did it or not. Maybe there was an update, but anyway, basically, I lost 2 years of stuff. Now, fortunately for me, most of the stuff I really care about is in the cloud. All my client stuff, all that stuff that would be really, really hard to recreate, all that was in the cloud. So, yay for that, right? And there were a couple other things that were really important to me. In the pictures, I have them all on CD, so those are replaceable. The structure of my that's less, it's annoying, but it's replaceable. And there was one document that I was really upset that I would have lost it, but fortunately I emailed it to somebody a couple of days earlier, so I didn't lose it altogether. So yay. But the cool thing is that I figured out how to have a different background in the back now. Now we just got to figure out the dang lighting, huh? Oh, so I can now see. Before, I couldn't see anything in the chat. Everything was really small. Somehow I hit a button somewhere. I don't know what I did, but I did something and like everything became like 4-point font. Well, even with my glasses, I can't see 4-point font. So, yeah. Anyway, so now if you not call in, we don't do call ins. That could be fun. Remember when you used to listen to call in? I grew up listening to Loveline and people would call in. That was kind of cool. But if you write in now, I can read it. So that's very exciting. So if you have questions, it's New Year's, it's new beginnings. I would love to hear your questions. And let's see what you got. What's stumping you? I want to know. So this year I got to do something fun. And now I live in a little town called Monrovia, which is near a town called Pasadena, which you may have heard of. We have this little thing called a Rose Parade every year on the 1st of January. And I believe it's televised nationwide. It might even be televised more than that. I know it's on HGTV, so I believe it's televised nationwide, if not more. So I grew up with these floats. In fact, it's a really funny story. My first year of college, we did a homecoming thing, and each of the dorms got together and we each had a float. So we go to this big homecoming meeting, float meeting. I'm like, okay, they tell us we have a budget of $200. And I'm thinking, that's not going to buy very many flowers. But I kept listening because I'm like, what do I know about homecoming floats? I only went to one homecoming. I didn't know. We didn't have floats at that one. I didn't know nothing about it. And they kept talking about what we were going to do and what we're going to do. And nowhere during this 2-hour conversation did anybody mention flowers. How can we have a float without flowers? That's that's what a float was to me. I didn't know any different. A float has flowers. And I almost thought, well, maybe I'll just go buy some flowers. I'll go buy a dozen flowers. Isn't going to do much good. But it really took a little while for me to wrap my head around this. And then by the end of the meeting, I was like, oh, they don't really want to float. We have to call it something else. So I called it something else in my head. So every time they said float, I'm like, okay, it's different. It's not a real float. We're making a pretend float. But this year, I got to work on the floats. Now, many, many years ago when I was a teenager, I got to work on the floats. And it was freezing. Okay, I know it's California. Y'all are laughing at me. It's freezing. But for California, it was very, very cold that day. I don't know what the temperature was. And we sat out there under these, they're not tents, they're canopies. And we cut flowers, just cut all the petals into to nothing, little tiny pieces. And I was like, first of all, I was very cold. My patience level goes down with the cold. So I was like, why, this wasn't good for me. So anyway, it was kind of cool. I don't know. I don't know which float I was working on. It was just here, go cut some flowers. So this year, the city next to me every year does a float. And they put out on Facebook, hey, we need help. So I said, oh, I'll go help. That'll be fun. And we've had a very warm winter, very wet, but a very warm winter. So I went out and I was sorting caps and I was filling vials of flowers. And it's really neat the way they do this because, first of all, it's an all volunteer float. So the only way this gets done is they have lots of volunteers that come over the course of about a week to make this thing go from nothing. I mean, it's not nothing. They have the structure built, but to get all these flowers on there. And if you've seen them, there's a ton of flowers. And every square inch of these floats has to be covered with something natural. And so they got to dummyfy it because, they don't know who's working on the floats. And so they do have a core set of volunteers that do some of the more difficult, difficult's not the right word, artistic thinking. Okay. Anything that actually needs a brain. Well, I don't know. I'm being ridiculous. There's a lot of repetitive stuff. But anyway, there's some core volunteers that have a lot of experience. How about that? And the new people, they, sort caps and fill vials because how badly can you screw that up, right? So it was really interesting to see this thing become alive. So first of all, they paint everything the color that it's supposed to get. So it ends up being a paint by number kind of thing. And then there's patches of flowers. And so what they had us do was, part of what I had to do was we had these styrofoam, can you see? We had these styrofoam cutouts, and they were cut out based on where they were going on the float. Now, when you saw the float, there was corresponding cutouts where those were. So they glued the styrofoam onto that space, and it didn't have a color. Okay, it had to be something. It was like gray or something, but it wasn't a color that was the float. And so then I had to fill it with vials, which relatively, foolproof thing. And, they did give us directions on how far to fill it and stuff like that. And I'm amazed at, okay, let's say if I did fill it too high, well, then water falls out. Is it the end of the world? No. Is it bad if all of them have it? Yeah, but it's not going to ruin anything. And, sorting the caps, I'm sure there's a few that got by. I went back. So when I was there the first day, they were putting seeds on. So that's the first thing that goes on. I think it's the most delicate thing to do because they've got all the seeds, or they are the pieces of flour. So years ago when I did it, we cut them with scissors. Now, you know what they do? They put them in a blender. I'm like, oh my God, that's so much faster. So they put them in a blender. Now they've got, the right color stuff. And so those get glued on. And they're not gonna, they're glued on. Seeds don't go bad. So this is the kind of stuff they do first. And it's kind of fun to watch them do it because they just take a brush, they put glue on the space, they have everything outlined, and it does take some skill to do some of this. Some of the areas not so much, but our float was the fire department float. So if you saw it, the one with the fire truck and the Dalmatian, the big stack of pancakes, that was the one I worked on. And so like the pancakes were all seeds. Well, that didn't take as much. But then there was places but then the fire truck actually had the city emblem, and the words on it. That took a little bit more skill. So they did that. And when I was there, about half the seeds were on, and it was really cool just seeing it and seeing the seeds in place and going, wow. And I knew like what this was going to become. And they have a picture out that you can see what it's going to look like. Of course, it always looks so much better in person than when. And so the next day I wasn't able to go help. And I think it was like a couple days before I was able to go help again. And on the 31st, I went by to help and to see what it looked like. And technically it has to be done by like morning on the 31st, but well, if they're still going, I can help. So you know what they gave me to do? It was for next year even. And I was like, so they had all these seeds and I was supposed to clean them out because when they do the brushing on, other flowers get in there. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'll come back and do that next year. I'm not doing that this year. Oh my goodness. So, but when I walked in there, this thing was alive. It was so beautiful. And TV doesn't really capture just how stunning they are when you get to see them in person. And, you can usually go after the parade. There's like 3 days. They sit in a park all the parade, and you can go by and, you got to pay. I don't know what it is. It's been a while since I've done it, but you pay a few bucks and you can go in and you can see all of the floats. Now, they're not moving, of course. If they have motion to them, you don't see that. But seeing all of these fresh and all the bouquets and, some of the bouquets, they were definitely done by florists or, somebody of that training. And it was amazing to see the transformation and how quickly it was done. And I may go and volunteer to do the whole year. I think that would be really neat to be part of the process for the whole year. So I got to look in to see what I got to do that. But I think it would be a lot of fun. And then I'll have a better idea as far as, what needs helping out. And at the end of the year, next year, I can say, oh, that's my float. And I did that this time. And, oh, that's the float I worked on. And, I filled some vials. I filled up 2 of the little styrofoam things. I don't know, maybe 18 inches wide. I helped. I mean, it's a few hours that somebody else, they had a lot of people going in and doing a few hours, and, you get 20 people doing that, the thing comes alive. And that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, I put my contribution in. Maybe next year I'll get to do something a little bit more complicated. But that was what was really cool about the whole thing is I could see how they broke it down step by step so that it could just be like anybody could come in and do this. And I don't know if like who put the flowers in, if that was but they could here do this, or I don't know if they had a florist come in and do it and set it up, but they at least had, if it was, then they could go in and sit there and go boom, 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 and it would be pretty easy. So anyway, so that was my exciting new year, and I'm very excited to be able to use my backgrounds because now I can show you different things. It gives me a lot more possibilities to show you some of my work. Stream this live to my audience. What happens if we push this? We can't do it right now. Maybe next time. I'll be more prepared next time and we'll stream it live to my audience. That could be fun. All right. So it's New Year's. It's time for new beginnings. How many of you did some cleaning? How many of you cleaned out your closets? I did. One of my favorite stores. Oh my God. I love this store. This lady makes all of her own designs, and at least I think she does. I don't know how bespoke it is, but she only makes a few items of each thing. It's not like there's 50 things in there. And anyway, her normal pricing is, more than what I would normally spend.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Yes, Ms. Flores, go ahead with your question.
Mr. President, people are hurting. In these perilous times, what is your message to people dealing with political unrest and divisiveness, not only in this country, but in other places around the world?
My message is simple. We are one.
Mr. President.
One more question. Brian.
Sir, people are angry, pointing fingers, looking for someone to blame. Communities are devastated, and even families.
Oh, okay. Well, that was interesting. I have no idea what happened. Wow. Okay. Well, technological challenges. I don't know who that was. I don't know what that was about. That was very strange.
That was called hitting wrong buttons while you're doing multitasking and everything like that. That's what happens when you're cleaning and everything like that. So I do apologize for that. That was from one of the other shows.
Okay.
Let's keep on. I'll go off and everything, but I know I need to get some winter cleaning done. I got some friends that said they were doing winter cleaning. I don't know if they actually did it, but we'll see if they actually winter cleaned and everything like that. But yeah, winter cleaning seems to be a popular thing where people decide that it is a new season. It's supposed to be winter. And Jeanette, I have good news for you because I know you will talk about my weather here in North Carolina and everything. I think we got some California weather because right now it's acting like California. I think it was in the 70s yesterday, or maybe the 60s. It's supposed to be in the 70s today and tomorrow. I think we'll go back to more typical weather where we're in the 50s and maybe have some cold weather like 30s and 20s later on. But right now we're in the middle of like this spring, spring, whatever you want to call it. But it's not the normal weather that you would usually expect. So we're having a weather shift. So I know there's a lot of people talk about climate change and weather shifts, and maybe that's why some people are confused and everything like that. Because I like what you told me about the months, and I forgot that we used to have 13 months and didn't have 12 months like we are now used to. And I think there used to even be different amounts of days as well. So I guess we thought we had the right system, and now we got the wrong.
So what it was we used to have 13 months, and they were all 28 days. And okay. Us women are very connected with that time frame. And so yes. It makes a lot of sense. And somewhere along the line, they decided that we should have 12 months instead. And that's why we have leap year, is it doesn't fit. and that's why the days we have, each month has different days. But if you look at it, September is 7. That's not our 7th month. October is 8. That's not our 8th month. November is 9. That's not our 9th month. December is 10. That's not our 10th month. And so they dropped a month and they renamed stuff. And so April Fools, April 1st actually used to be the first day of the year. And how they got it to, they decided to make it January 1st instead. And so they did a thing with, oh, anybody who's still going to celebrate April 1st, well, we're going to call April Fool's Day because you're a fool. So they just made fun of them to make them quit. And yeah, media, and there was media back then too. I mean, it comes in different ways, but there was media back then, and that's what they did was so that's why April 1st.
We were talking about media earlier today, Jeanette, because there was a young lady that was on our news show, and she wrote a book. She did a documentary. It was on American experiences called, it's about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But she said that there was a lot of journalists that were concerned about the impact of the atomic bomb, and they were revealing it, but the propaganda machine of that time didn't want them to reveal as much of the bad effects of the war as they might have wanted to reveal. So that's why she did this documentary and everything. I was trying to think of the title of it, but it's not coming to me, even though she was on the show earlier today and everything. But we're just talking about how the journalists were trying to be the true force of state and everything like that. But it was interesting, that conversation that was earlier today.
Propaganda is rampant. Anybody who doesn't see it is, or who doesn't think so, is naive. And to think that propaganda comes from only from one party is absolutely 100% wrong. I saw a post on Facebook today, and it was a total propaganda post. And my response to it, I said, "Why are you creating hate?" That's the whole purpose of this post, was to do nothing but create propaganda. And I just said, why are you creating hate? And that's the thing, is like, the history is full of lies. And in fact, there was just recently, I saw this, it was very interesting. So I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but the story is right. So there's the famous 2 princes in the Tower of London. Yes. That were supposed to, and they were imprisoned there, and they were killed, and they were like 7 years old. And you know, when you go to when you go do a tour of the tower, they show you, this is the tower the princes were in. And so it was attributed to a guy, and I forget his name, but at the time it was attributed to that guy. Well, but if you look at that, they actually found, they unearthed this guy's body, and they found that it was wrong. He didn't do this. Something about his body said that he didn't do this. And they figured out that if you look at, okay, why would this person do it? He didn't actually have a reason to do it. But what it did was it changed the lines. So in English kings, you have different houses, right? So you have the Plantagenets, you have the Tudors, you have, each time there's kind of a dead end, it switches gears and it goes down a different way. So that's what this 2 princes thing did. Well, the person who was king next benefited from this, and his line took the throne. And so they said, logic says that this is the guy who did it. And they found some evidence to unearth it. And they said, yeah, this is what happened. So here we have 500 years later. But what happened was, the guy who did it, he didn't want to be caught. He was going to be king next. And so let's blame it on somebody else. For 500 years, we were taught the wrong thing. So propaganda is huge. And I get so I'm going to go on a news diatribe here, but I don't care what news you watch. I don't care. It's the same. Okay. I see these people. Blah, 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 blah. Well, this is just right. Is it? Is it? Many years ago in the 50s, women were told to smoke for their health. Pregnant women were told to smoke for their health. You go back even further. They sprayed DDT on kids. You may not even know what DDT is. DDT was supposed to get rid of bugs and stuff like that. And they put it on food. They sprayed it on trees, on plants, but they also sprayed it on kids. Can you imagine spraying something like that on your kid? We would never even think about it today, but it was standard practice then. So these are just a couple of really big things that we've got to learn to question. We just have to learn to question instead of thinking, I saw this on the news and it's right. Oh, better yet, I saw this on Facebook and it's right. Is it?
Nope, you got a question.
Instead of just believing everything we read, it's true. It's not.
Yeah, and that's what this lady was talking about. Miss Ross was her name, Felicia Ross, but it was the name of the movie was Bombshell and everything like that, because it was a bombshell. Some of the things that were being revealed about the impact of the atomic bomb in terms of radiation poisoning and stuff like that. So that was the name of the book, and there were people that were trying to defend America, because it was a time that everybody wanted to be very patriotic because we were in the middle of a world war and everything like that. But like you said, whether it's now or then, that's what she was referring to. But it was very interesting. You're right.
It was totally destructive. Can you imagine what it did to all those people? We know what happened in Chernobyl, sort of. Right. Well, we think we know, but I mean, like yeah, I mean, it's generations, because things got mutilated. We don't know, did the DNA get changed? We don't know things, but something like that takes generations to repair from. It's not we got healed. And there is, I have read that there are some things that you can take to help with the effects of nuclear fallout. I forget what they are, but they exist. And they live in a culture that actually honors what natural medicine is, so they may have found it. I don't know, but and maybe they utilized it. It's not something I know a lot of history about over there.
I don't either, but like I said, it was interesting. They're learning more from this.
Devastation. And even so, you survive. Okay, so now everything you have is everything that's around you is contaminated. You can't eat anything that's there. You can't drink anything that's there. So now you got to move somewhere else. You're contaminated. They didn't even know what that all meant. So they probably just kept living in the same space. How many people died from the radiation? I'm sure the US didn't keep track of that. Maybe the people in Japan did, but
they probably didn't keep track of that at all and everything like that. So that's just something that was fascinating and all along those ways and everything like that. It's been fascinating, the different weather that we've been having, because that's the other thing I was mentioning to you, is that it's definitely unseasonably warm here and everything like that. So it's more like California like weather. I think today it might have been even when it was cool in the 60s and everything like that. And definitely we've been in the 70s and all in that space. I think even the birds are confused, because I know I've gone out and heard some of the birds singing, and some of them are birds that are going to be out, because some birds are more all year round birds than others, because some of the birds are like, we out of here, it's cold, we're going down south and everything like that. But not every bird migrates, I don't think. But definitely I think some of the birds that are used to migrating, they're like, hey, it must be March. Oh, wait a minute, it's not March, it's January. We're confused. Do we go back? Do we come here? We're confused. So they can be like humans. They can get confused as well as to whether they want to go on vacation or not go on vacation and everything like that. They might be like, I thought we were going to the Caribbean. But now they're having Caribbean weather in North Carolina. But now it's not Caribbean weather. I'm confused. So they might be as confused as us humans are.
Well, we've had a relatively warm winter, which my heating bill appreciates. I appreciate. But we've also had more rain than we've had in a very long time. It rained on New Year's Day for the first time in like 20 years. It's only rained on the New Year's parade like 10 times in over 100 years. And that's pretty big. So it's a big deal. But people were still out there in the rain and having fun, and the float survived, and all was well. But we've had a couple big storms since then. So we've had as of January 3rd, we had 15 inches of rain, and that's more than we get all year. So we've had a deluge, and it's probably more than that because we've had a couple good days of storm since then. I'm sure they're at least an inch, and we don't get that much rain. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it sounds wild. Have you ever done? I just thought about that when you were talking about the float and everything like that. Whether it was the Christmas parade or the Rose Bowl parade or any other parades that exist around the country, particularly in California, since you're a California girl, to borrow that line from the song and all along those lines and everything like that. Have you ever done any advertising by like putting your name on a float or on a car or anything like that? Because I know that even sometimes I've seen businesses like lawyers and interior designers that have put wraps around buses or things around the bus to let folks know that they exist.
Well, you need to have millions of dollars to do the Rose Parade float. I don't. I have a sticker on my car.
You do?
That's about as far as I go. Is I haven't got a wrap on my car, but I do have a magnet on my car, and it the best it's gotten me thus far is I had somebody call me and tell me my lights weren't on, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Advertising is such a funny thing. My town does a little Christmas parade, and I don't know if they advertise people. I don't know if that's an advertising opportunity. That might be interesting to look into, but no, the Rose Parade, like it's a lot of money to do a float. They're not cheap. And if you look at who has the floats on there, these are Honda. It's they're cities. The cities, they get a lot of volunteers to help. So they, but they're not, they're wealthy cities. They're not, they're not just any city. Honda, City of Hope. Who else is these are people who can spend a lot of money.
Oh yeah, they can spend millions, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars and everything like that, so they can afford it. I know that even my brother's Slingshot Club has been on the local Durham parade here in Durham, North Carolina. So I do know that I think it might be as a couple of $100 or something like that. So it's not as expensive for maybe some of the smaller cities. So it might be worth checking out for your city and everything like that, because they might only be charging a lot less than the Rose Parade. Because we know they're going to be charging a lot less than the Rose Parade.
There is the Doodah Parade, which I've seen a couple times. And that is all volunteer, and that might be something, but you got to have a really cool car. Now, I love my car, and it is the perfect Jeanette car, but it's not a good parade car. So you still got to have a parade car has got to have a top down or something like that. I mean, I've got a what's it called? A roof window. What's it called?
I'm trying to think what that, but
roof,
what that part.
The roof window.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name of it. We'll call it a roof window. It's a roof window for today.
It's a roof window for today. So I've got one of those, but I can't drive. I guess I could get somebody to drive and then have me, and then just have stickers on my car. I never thought about doing the Doodah Parade, but the Doodah Parade is like ridiculous. It's like, it's funny. it's like I have a friend who did the Doodah Parade, and she is actually she's got an international medal for whistling.
Oh wow!
And who knew that was a competition, right?
Yeah, it
But
is a competition.
she does a couple other things that are, so that's kind of an unusual thing, right? So she
She might
got
have even
there,
been.
she
She might have even
whistled.
been in North Carolina because I think there's a whistling competition here in North Carolina. I forget where it's at, but I know that there is a whistling competition here. So I know that there are different types of whistles. So maybe she competed in this neck of the woods. But I know that there's.
I know she's traveled for different places, but the Doodah Parade, it is a lot cheaper. You don't have to spend money on that. It's more whatever you want to contribute, but it is it is it is the we don't belong to the box. These are all out of the box people, which
No,
I am out of the box. I never thought about doing the Doodah Parade. I could think about that.
no, you're definitely out of the box. And like I said, Durham is definitely out of the box. We married our own city and everything like that. But that
You
was
what?
6 or 7 years ago. Durham, the city I lived in, about it was well before the pandemic, so it might have been almost 8, 9 years ago. We literally had an event where people, and it was all done in fun. It wasn't done in seriousness, but it was called Marry Durham, and I think some other states, including one in the West Coast, it might have been in Portland or Colorado, picked it up and everything. But you were basically given vows like you would at a wedding to do better in terms of like not polluting, love your neighbor, and do stuff like that. So it was done in almost like a wedding form and everything like that. And people dressed in their wedding dress, including some that had actually been married, some that had never been married. And I was one of the organizers of that event. But I heard this comedian yesterday, and I thought about you and this particular show because it was a comedian. It was that Byron Allen show where his comics unleashed, and one of the comedians, they had several comedians. They had a Spanish comedian that was talking about the what do you call it, the cave, the Bat Cave. He said, well, I know one people that would know where the Bat Cave is and everything like that. That'll be the contractors. There are probably some Mexicans in Gotham City that know where the Bat Cave is and where the Bat Cave is located because they probably built the Bat Cave and everything like that. So I thought that was a good joke that he was telling. But the other one was a gentleman that was divorced, and he was talking about the wholeness of, like, when he was trying to date and redate and all along those lines, how he was going to try to find somebody that could. And I guess when he got divorced, he had half the stuff, his wife had half the other half of the stuff. So he was going to try to find somebody that could match the stuff that he didn't have. So like if he had a dining set and like the living room set and everything, but she had the TV, then they could make a whole living room and everything like that. So that's what he was thinking about in terms of who he was going to pair up with, somebody that could help him create a whole house, and part of the house was gone since they had split the house. The show is crazy. Like I said, I don't always watch Comic Unleashed, but they do have some good comics on there and everything. There was even one comic that was a gay comic, and he was talking about how the one thing that he had never seen in a movie, and he did a whole impersonation of what it would look like, is a gay horror movie, meaning that the bad guy or the monster is a gay character and everything like that. So he was like, you've never seen that in a horror movie, and he did a comic routine about what would that look like? How would the comic say boo, or the ghost say boo, if you was a gay comic and everything, or a gay ghost. So like I said, there were some interesting folks on that show. Like I said, I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times in the last month. But yeah, sometimes if I'm up late and having those insomniac moments, I might watch stuff like that. So,
Well, he would be very well dressed. That's all I know.
And he did make a joke about that too. He said it would be a well dressed. That was part of his joke. He said it would be a very well dressed cop. But he was afraid that he might be too dressed, that he might startle the people in the other way, because they might be like, "Where'd you get that suit from?"
And he'd be in excellent shape, because I learned this from a gay friend of mine, but the pressure to be the perfect weight is very intense because guys are more visual,
Right.
And so they have the same pressure that women have on them to be beautiful, but it's in a little bit more intense way because um, the other thing with the gay community is it's like, I mean, in general, men don't need to be monogamous,
Right.
and they, that works for them, so they utilize that. So when I used to work at the PDC, uh, there was the Halloween parade and there was a gay pride parade, and oh my gosh, like the next day there would be condoms like everywhere. Like, yeah, and some of them have very long standing, monogamous relationships, but guys don't necessarily need that as much as women do, and so they're like, yeah, let's go do. And so the intensity of having to look good is pretty high.
Yeah, it's high. I know that I saw something at my bus stop. I mentioned on one of our other news shows, and I know what they are, and I know that they're used in monogamous relationships and other relationships. I was just surprised that the person left the box. They did not leave the item, thank goodness, but they did leave the item. I mean, they didn't leave the item, but they left the box at the bus stop. And I'm going like, this is a weird thing to have at a bus stop and everything like that. But yeah, I just kicked it over, and I realized even though Adam and Eve is from here, meaning that's one of them sex novelty stores and everything, I was not expecting to see a box for a butt plug in my local bus stop and everything like that. But it was literally a box right there, and that's what it was for. And I'm going like, this is an unusual thing but to be left at a bus stop near the trash can.
Well, there was a neighbor of ours at the where I worked, and so where I worked was the way it worked. They couldn't really get in where I did, but where they worked, there was a hedge, and so there was like a modicum of privacy.
Right.
And the city, it's their job to clean up the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So they clean up the streets, but it's not their job to clean up the parking lots.
Right.
And so if I was them, I would have cut down the hedge. It's like, hey, but this was when AIDS was really big. And so the lady showed up to work on Monday morning, and there was like a ton of condoms in her parking lot. And,
right.
It's like, and there was a lot of fear back then too, and
there's still fear now too. Cause I know that even, they used to have an office in, the Cultural Arts Center that I work at downstairs in the basement, but that was before the pandemic. But there was definitely a group, I think they're a national group, called the Harm Free Zone and everything like that. And they would pick up, I'm sure they picked up some of that, but they would also pick up from the drug users a lot of the syringes, because you don't want syringes being reused and everything like that. So they would do a lot of that. And one of those was one of their primary cleaning targets was at a local park. It was actually an active park, so there might be kids playing there and other people playing there too. So they tried to make it a regular sweep to make sure that those needles were picked up and properly disposed of, so that the kids weren't harmed and didn't get any sort of diseases or other problems that could come from even being pricked by those needles and everything like that.
Yeah, I remember we've had a few cases where kids got hurt with needles in the park, and they were in the play area, and
right.
That's scary.
It is very scary. And that's why I was glad that those ladies, I think it's mostly ladies, there might be a couple of guys, were doing
always ladies. Every volunteer thing I join, there's like 90% women, and the only men are there is because their wives dragged them.
Yeah. The wives dragged them to do the volunteer work. Volunteer work is on the honey-do list.
Yeah, apparently.
It's on the honey-do list and everything like that. So that's amazing and everything like that. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but I know I've got some friends that are big time. And this is a design question, and then we'll get rid of rapid petroleum and everything if you want to, and all of those things. But what is your thoughts about should games be just left in a game room, or is it all right to put them in the living room and stuff like that? I mean, like even at Mom's house, I know that in the living room, she's got Scrabble. I think there's the game we play, Spinners, and maybe some other board games that she might pull out, but they're in the cabinet and they're not literally interfering with anything like that. But I do know some people that I've been in their houses, they've had like a whole designated area where the pool table might be and the darts and stuff like that. But then I know some other people that might have it literally in the middle of the house and everything like that, just as part of their regular decor. So what is your thoughts about where games that might be attracting attention in a house should be?
Depends on how you live and how they get used. Yesterday, I went to a potential client to do an estimate, and they've got kids. One's 6 and one's 8, and they're both very creative folk. He does sewing, and he does stuff with 3D creations, and mom's pretty creative too, and she does most of her stuff on the computer. But we're literally taking what their family room would be and turning it into what they call a creator room.
Okay.
And so the kids need a place, like right now the kitchen table kind of becomes it. And, then you can't have people over, then you're constantly moving stuff around. So we're going to be creating a creator room and with a place for them to display some of the things they make, and have a table in there just for creating. And then everybody has a different way of what they need organizing wise. So for some people, it's if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. So I don't like to do deep cupboards in some things, because if you do 24-inch deep cupboards or even 18-inch deep cupboards, and you'll notice in your fridge, there's stuff in the back of your fridge. You go clean out your fridge and like, oh, I forgot I had this. And now it's like green. You don't even know what it is anymore, right? So, or you're cleaning out your cupboards one day, and if you got 24-inch deep cupboards, there's like, oh, I didn't know. You probably bought 6 more because you forgot you had that one.
Right.
And so keeping cupboards, 12 inches, 15 inches deep helps prevent that.
Yeah.
So some people want it to be, they're really minimalist and they want it to be really clean looking and everything has a spot and it's behind a door.
Yeah.
Other people, they want to be able to see it. Hey, we love playing games, and they, maybe there's some closed doors, but they want to be able to, like, we love playing Scrabble. So the Scrabble's out. I've even done, I haven't done it. I've seen, I think it's really cool, but I've seen some life-size game boards. So you can use it's like a life-size chess board, a life-size Monopoly board, so you can put that as your carpet. You can make that your carpet to really say, hey, this is a game space. Right. I have a client that we built it's kind of like a pool table, but it's not a pool table. So he loves playing like Dungeons and Dragons. It's not Dungeons and Dragons, but you and I know what that means. And so he loves playing these kind of games. And they're not games that like you play for an hour and put away.
Right.
And the room has to be used for other things. So what they did was they built kind of like a pool table. It's inset. You take the top off, and there's your D&D game right there, just the way you left it. When you're done, you put the top back on. Voila, now you've got your dining table back. It's actually become an office for his son, but you've got a work surface back. So that's another way of doing it. So it really just depends on like, how do you live? It's not about what's appropriate because it's pretty. Right. I can make anything pretty.
No doubt about that.
How do you live? Do you want to have, here's our 5 favorite games. We're going to have these displayed. So we want to have these easy and ready to go, because maybe we're people who we're not going to open a door and shut a door all the time. But maybe the games, the puzzles or something like that, you don't use so much. Those can be behind the doors.
Yep. I've even seen people that have made jigsaws. And like people, I've got an aunt that's like, well, she used to like doing, I don't know if she still does and everything, and I've tinkered with them and everything. But I've definitely seen some friends and other acquaintances that have made the solving of the jigsaw puzzle almost part of their decor, meaning that they might leave it out so that people can see the
Yeah.
finished
And then
product.
there's things you can put underneath the jigsaw puzzle. And then when it's all done, you turn it over and you apply glue to it and you can turn it into art.
Right. And I've seen people do that. They made it into like an example of their accomplishment or whatever. So they turned it into like almost like an art piece, for lack of an example. So I've definitely seen that. And I don't know how you feel about it. I think I mentioned this to you before, but a friend of mine just got engaged, and he's engaged to two friends of mine that are engaged to each other, and Jess and Jason. But Jess has a friend that is an inventor of one of those play companies where they're like play sofas. So the sofas are designed to be played on and everything like that. So they are not like your sitting down sofas. They are intended for kids to climb on and everything like that. So just it's not her company, but it's a friend of hers company and everything like that. But I've seen people do that, particularly for young kids, where they're supposed to be. It almost becomes like a jungle gym of within the house, because it's designed to be part of the house, but also something that you can play on. It's not something that you would tell the cats and the little kids not to play with. It's actually designed to be a play venue, even though it's a couch.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. This client I saw yesterday, you know, they've got 6-year-old and 8-year-old. That's their world. So we're designing stuff, and I'm designing stuff that's going to grow with the kids for their beds.
Right.
But she's like, well, how big a bed do we need for the kids? They've got king size beds right now. And I'm like, well, but their rooms are big. They can handle the king size bed. And I said, well, you know, queen size bed is enough for any kid. And they also want it so that when they have relatives come over, the kids can come into their bed. I don't know what size bed there is. That I've never seen a bed that big before. I think they've got like 2 full sizes put together.
Wow.
And so they've got a super family size bed in there. And so the idea is that when the in-laws come over, they can have a queen size bed in the kids' room. The kid can come sleep with them, and that's, you know, that's the other part of the kids having a bigger room, because the kid doesn't need a queen size bed. The kid doesn't need a king size bed. You know,
kid doesn't need a king size bed, and in some cases, the pet doesn't need the pet furniture. Even though I know a lot of you pet owners, and I've been a pet owner in the past, we love giving them their own little bed and their own little cottage, even though they'd be a lot of times perfectly fine with the floor. Matter of fact, I just saw I think it was on Instagram. It might have been, or
they don't even use it.
Yeah,
I bought this toy for my cat. It was all over Facebook, and they're like, oh, we did all this research and your cat's going to love it. And it does all this stuff. It's a scratch pad, and it turns inside and out, and it springs out, and, you know, all these reasons why this is like the best toy ever. So I bought the dang thing. Neither of my cats would look at it. I did all this stuff and showed them, and it's got a little ball running around the outside of it or the inside of it. And my cats could care less.
Yeah, they could care less. I did see a funny thing about cats caring less and everything. That I was watching that Instagram post, and it was about a dog, and the dog was actually it might have even been like a human, one of the cartoons where the human voice is narrating for the dog, but the dog had got injured and hurt and everything like that, and had gone to a house that was you could tell the cat was the boss, but after the dog got hurt, the cat did a good job of nurturing and caring for the cat, even to the point of cuddling with the dog and everything like that, because the dog got hurt and the cat was like, oh, my buddy's hurt, I need to go get there and give him some comfort and everything like that. So I've seen that in real life too, where you think that the animals aren't getting along, and then they turn out that when one of them gets hurt, the other one comes over and says, let me give you some comfort.
Oh, that's sweet.
It is sweet. It was a sweet commercial. So you ready for some Kendu Spice?
I'm ready for some Kendu Spice.
Let's do some Kendu Spice and everything. This has been a fun conversation. We'll be back next week with more great conversations, and I'll try to find you some guests, and you'll find some guests. And we're going to try to find some money too, because I know you sent me your bio stuff and all along those lines, and I've got to get that to Kim, and she's modifying too. They've already done some modification, but they're doing more modification of the website and everything like that. So we're going to make hopefully getting some folks in here to make us some money and everything like that. But right now, let's check out Kendu Spice and help them.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin. Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.